Nihilus. Darth Nihilus reigned as a Dark Lord of the Sith during the era of strife following the Jedi Civil War. Before becoming a Sith Lord, he lost everything during the Galactic Republic's war against the Mandalorians. He survived the activation of the Mass Shadow Generator superweapon during the war's final battle at the planet of Malachor V, which surrounded the planet with a destructive spatial phenomenon known as a Mass Shadow. Experiencing the shadow that obliterated almost everything on and around the planet made Nihilus crave Force energy, and this affliction painfully ravaged his body while rendering him a wound in the Force. He accepted Darth Traya's offer of apprenticeship at the Trayus Academy on Malachor V, where he, over time, became one of the 3 concurrent Dark Lords of the Sith. Darth Nihilus's impact on history has been significant as one of the reigning Sith Lords at the time. Alongside Darth Sion, he is responsible for bringing the Jedi to near extinction at the time. He also left a mark on the universe through mass-scale destruction in an attempt to drain Force energy. One such example was the planet KOTOR. When Nihilus neared the planet, he spoke, his voice a great hunger. The Sith Lord's hunger overwhelmed them and obliterated the surface of KOTOR, wiping out the entire colony and anything else touched by the Force. Nihilus destroyed much of what remained of the Jedi Order. As he afterward walked on the surface of KOTOR, Nihilus found only a single living being, an injured Miraluka woman named Visas Ma. He put her in a deep sleep and brought her aboard his ship. She would later become his apprentice. Nihilus sensed a growing presence in the Force and sent Ma to eliminate it. This presence was a female exile named Mitra Surik. Upon being manipulated by a series of events set in motion by Darth Traya, Darth Nihilus came to Telos IV in an attempt to feed his hunger. He was killed on the bridge of his vessel by Surik and his former apprentice. During combat, Darth Nihilus fought in an aggressive, one-handed style. He had learned some of the greatest of the Sith teachings, but such practices took the form of dependence. They would make him stronger, but only for a time, and he would have to feed upon Force energy to replenish his strength. For this reason, Force sensitives and worlds rich in the Force would draw him. His reach in the Force eventually extended to a point where he could feel Force users throughout the galaxy. To find planets, he would then cleanse entirely, killing everything touched by the Force. Prolonged use of this power made him a threat to all life, as his craving grew more intense with each feeding. Eventually, Nihilus's hunger controlled him, not the other way around, and the Sith Lord would instinctively feed upon those around him, slowly killing them. Nihilus's very speech caused pain and death to all who heard it, and those who served him became utter slaves in time. Darth Nihilus was adept in many aspects of the Force. He used his dark variant of the Sever Force ability to betray Darth Traya alongside Darth Sion by stripping her of the Force and casting her out of the Sith Order. Nihilus could also use the Force to lift starships, as he did on Malachor V with the Ravager. He tore it from the mass shadows that surrounded the planet and kept it together, even though it had suffered extensive structural damage. Through the Force, Darth Nihilus was able to escape death by containing his consciousness in his armor, an ability that Darth Krayt would inquire of Nihilus's holocron millennia later. It is known he was proficient in Dark Rage, Farsight, the ability to predict future events, Force Lightning, Force Resistance, Force Scream, Force Plague, and Force Whirlwind, amongst others, such as a dark variant of Force Healing called Dark Healing. The power Darth Nihilus wielded was difficult to describe. Visas Ma noted that as his power grows, so do his perceptions, and she elaborated that he was no longer observing the world around him through the eyes of a mere mortal. He saw no individuals, but rather galaxies and star systems. It is unlikely he possessed any particular preference or styles when it came to manipulating the Force. This is the simple conclusion based on the fact that he didn't need such things. He wielded such power, he would devour worlds. Within the time frame of his existence, only 2 people had the ability to pose a significant threat. The first was his apprentice, to whom he was bound. Mrs. Smar was capable of influencing him through the bond they shared. The other was Mitra Surik, who was wounded in the Force. As such, she could stand up to Nihilus. Darth Nihilus' Force potency is very difficult to measure, and there are few within the known universe who rival it. His knowledge also extends to Sith alchemy. During the Second Battle of Onderon, Nihilus' sect of Sith followers used techniques that would tame beasts to their will. Nihilus could increase the strength of Force powers he used greatly, if he wished, and he was capable of reaching through the Force at a range as far as a star system. Darth Nihilus wielded a self-built lightsaber containing a red crystal. He wore a distinctive mask and set of armor, which he merged his spirit with to survive after his organic body decayed away. His robes and armor were black and covered his entire human form, aside from his face, which was covered by a mask. The mask was white with red stripes over each eye hole. It would have covered cheeks, but not a nose or mouth. There was also a brown embossed detail on the mask that split it vertically in 2 halves. To enable his addiction to devouring worlds, he led a flotilla from his personal starship, the Ravager. He created these ships from the wreckage left behind after the Battle of Malachor V. As such, they were badly damaged and held together with Nihilus' will. He only allowed the particle shield to barely maintain atmosphere. He stuffed the vessels with slaves whose bodies were badly damaged from being in contact with the Dark Lord. Nihilus allied himself with General Vaklu, the leader of a separatist movement that wanted the planet of Onderon to leave the Galactic Republic. He wanted to aid Vaklu in breaking away from the Republic, so the planet would fall under his influence and become a staging ground for the Sith. The Sith Lord also established a base on Onderon's moon, Duxon, inside the tomb of an ancient Dark Lord of the Sith named Freeden Nad. The tomb contained a dark energy force nexus, upon which Nihilus hoped to feed after his underlings performed a dark side ritual to influence the outcome of the upcoming Onderon civil war between the Separatists and the Onderon Royalists to his favor. Darth Nihilus was a man who always craved greater power. However, unlike most Sith Lords, he cared very little for the Sith as an organization. Kreia noted that he cared nothing for the Sith or the Jedi. Annihilating the Republic and the Jedi was a mere stepping stone on the path to his ultimate goal, and even if he had annihilated them, he would have continued to consume the Sith as well, until there was nothing left in the world he could feed upon. Nihilus saw death as the sole purpose of life, and power as the means to achieve it. He was cautious, as his actions during the campaign against the Jedi showed, and when taking action, he was known as an aggressive, dominant figure who would not tolerate any threats to his power. Based on his behavior, it is safe to assume he was not a patient individual with those of lesser power, as is the case with most Sith Lords. However, patience was a virtue when the occasion warranted it. He betrayed Darth Traya only once he obtained the knowledge he needed from her. Similarly, he would carefully strike the Jedi from the shadows, remaining concealed from everyone, including his own apprentice. Nihilus was once a human male, with black hair coiled finely into strips that he tied together behind his head. After he indulged his hunger for the dark side, he lost his corporeal form, preserving his existence only by having his spirit linger within his mask and armor. The Dark Lord fully embraced his condition, as the mysterious and monstrous facets of it instilled in people who met him a deep-rooted fear upon which he could prey. Ceasing to feel fear and other emotions, he became an entity of pure intent. Nonetheless, Nihilus was still human enough to have some feelings, as his bond with Ma persisted until their confrontation on the Ravager. There is much speculation on why he saved her, one being that they formed a force bond of sorts when he drained the planet of KOTOR, Vissus's homeworld. But the fact that he showed her the world as he saw it, rather than simply force her to do his bidding, indicates there may be something else hiding there. In an attempt to make her believe in his cause, Nihilus showed her a vision, forcing her to see the galaxy in a way that her people never could, sentient beings on other planets, disconnected from the life surrounding them, unable to feel the Force. She was his only apprentice, and when she betrayed him on the bridge of the Ravager, her choice was met with much anger. Nihilus didn't leave any followers or teachings behind him, so it stands to reason that there wasn't much of a following or greatly impactful legacy left after his death. Although at least one Sith Lord rose and succeeded Nihilus, quietly ruling as the Republic began to thrive anew. Similarly, the Jedi Order rebounded as well, with Ma and other Force-sensitive companions of the Exile rebuilding it. Roughly 300 years later, the Sith and Jedi would once again clash during the Great Galactic War that pitted the Republic against the resurgent Sith Empire. In the aftermath of that conflict, the two shared an uneasy coexistence for a time. The subsequent decades saw replicas of Nihilus's mask and cowl worn by galactic citizens. Primarily, Nihilus is remembered for his mask and his holocron. These objects were sought after by many a Sith in an attempt to commune with his spirit. The mask was considered to be a Sith artifact that encouraged the wearers to slowly destroy themselves for greater power. For the next 4,000 years, rumors spread across the galaxy concerning the mask's power. It was said that the mask contained the power of the dark side of the Force, and if an individual who was not Force-sensitive was to don the mask, they would be able to wield the Force as a Sith apprentice. If, however, a Jedi or Sith were to wear the mask, proficiency in additional Force powers, always including but not limited to dark side powers, were acquired. However, it was cautioned that the dark influence of the mask propelled the wearer towards acts of self-destruction in the pursuit of greater power. The last known location of the mask was on the planet Volek. A freighter which crash-landed on the planet's surface around the time of the first Jedi Purge is presumed to be the final resting place of the mask. Darth Nihilus's holocron, which could allow someone to commune with his spirit, was found by certain individuals, but no concrete information could be extracted from it, as the Sith Lord's spirit from within the holocron would only speak in the ancient language of the Sith, or at least that's what it is presumed to be. The last known individual to be in possession of the holocron was Darth Krayt, who used it to contact the Sith Lord on Korriban 137 years after the Battle of Yavin, roughly 4,000 years after Nihilus's death. Okay, now that the formal analytical part is behind us, let's put on some visuals to fill the screen and let's chat. Can't forget the background music too. I couldn't fit this piece in anywhere. I felt it was a bit too dominant, so I might as well include it here, since my pronunciation isn't in the focus in this part. Darth Nihilus. What a character. Very simple to describe, and yet when you do describe him, he sounds like quite an entity. He doesn't speak, which is a big plus in the mysticism department for me personally. I really like him because observing the universe through his eyes is quite interesting. He's not an evil character in my eyes, since his actions aren't driven by selfishness or the quest for power. He's starved and suffering and wants to alleviate that suffering. I guess I would more so describe him as a devastating force than an evil entity. I would have loved to see some dialogue scenes of him before he became Darth Nihilus, so we can sort of gauge his personality to see what he's motivated by. But I really do like him because he's simple, powerful, impactful. You'd be terrified to face him, so he has all the ingredients of a very good character. We even have an inkling of a personality and social behavior given the context of Vissus. And regarding his power, he was quite a big deal, because I will disagree with those who do sell him short when it comes to power. A lot of people say, when people are comparing certain characters, they say that Revan, for instance, would beat Nihilus in a duel. I personally don't believe that's true. People come to this conclusion because Revan is stronger than Surik, and Surik beat Nihilus. Thus, in that cycle, Revan should be able to be stronger than Nihilus. However, Surik won because of the conditions of her being a force wound. In reality, it wasn't Surik that placed herself there, Kreia placed her there. And I feel that if Revan were to face Nihilus, Nihilus would just bleed him dry from a distance. Like, that's as simple as it gets. However, I would include other factors. For instance, the biggest flaw that Nihilus has is his spectrum of observation of the world. You'd have to manipulate him to defeat him. So I don't really think anyone would stand a chance against him in direct face-to-face power off unless they're a force wound. Instead, you would need to outsmart him, distract him, and attack when he doesn't expect it. So if he sees on a scale of stars, surely you can pack a thermal detonator in one of those small little droids and just have it crawl to him. Overall, a really good character. I don't have a grading system yet, but I'd give him a very high grade. Something like 28 out of 32 force wounds or something. I don't know. If there was a show that incorporated his identity before, it'd be very interesting to discover which element of this equation that resulted in him becoming what he has become, what caused it, what prevented him from dying, what specifically caused him to become a force wound, I think that'd be such an interesting thing to explore. Let me know what you think about this template. There will be more of these videos coming, more power analysis videos, so feel free to suggest a character below. And that's it. Now it's time for the outro. Bye!